What is up, everybody? Welcome to the ninth episode of the Life Hack Podcast, Bite Sized Wisdom. It's been a minute. I've sat on this mic before. I've recorded, I've deleted, I've completely second guessed myself, and I'll be honest, I felt like I just had to step away for a bit. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I needed to figure out how I wanted to say it and why it even matters. a lot a lot changed recently in my life. A major chapter has closed, the one where I raised my son Braden through more chaos and weight than most people could even imagine. He's graduated, 18 years old, and he's becoming a man, and I'm so proud of him. But it made me take a hard look at myself, who I am now, and what I'm building, and what Life Hack really stands for. When I started this podcast, I got a little pushback, some negative energy I didn't ever even expect. And I'll have to admit, it messed with my head more than it should have. I let opinions from people I wouldn't take advice from cloud the way that I saw myself. And that's on me. But here's the truth. I'm done. I'm done apologizing. I'm done watering it down to pander to whoever. This is my life, my story, my thoughts, and I've earned every scar and every breakthrough that has brought me right here. So I'm redoing everything. Got a new studio, a new mindset, and the same real voice that you guys know, just a little bit louder. This episode isn't just a comeback, it's my turning point. It's raw, it's personal, it's about fatherhood, pride, legacy, and the kind of growth that comes from going through it all and choosing just to keep going anyway. So if you're here to grow, to feel something real, to, maybe understand more about your own story by hearing mine, this one is for you. Thanks, guys. All right, so let's first talk about the chapter that changed everything for me. I was 17 years old, a senior in high school, and while most of my classmates were thinking about prom, college applications, and, what party to hit on the weekend, I was getting ready to be a dad. Let me say that again. I was getting ready to be a dad at 17. That's not something that you can prepare for. I don't care how tough you are or how fast you've already grown up at that point. Nothing, absolutely nothing prepares you for that. I remember, this feeling like I was trapped in between like two worlds. One part of me still wanting to be a teenager, live wild, make mistakes, and be selfish. And the other part of me, the other part of me just had to figure out how to show up, how to carry weight and how to be responsible for something, bigger than myself. And truthfully, I didn't have any of the tools. I didn't have anything figured out. There's no manual for this, but, I had instinct, a whole lot of heart, and, this just unshakable feeling that if I didn't step up, nobody would. And I'd, lie to say that I did it, alone. There's people who helped along the way, but, when, it came down to everything that I did, every decision I made, every hustle, every sacrifice, every long night, every hard conversation, I, made it for him. Looking back, I think it's wild how blurred the lines got. I was raising him, but I was growing up too. Every year of his life marked another year of mine that I had to mature faster than most people around me. I didn't get the luxury of finding myself in peace. I had to build who I was while building somebody else's world. It was hard, it's and that, became our story. Me and Braden from the very beginning, it was me and him against it all. And the truth is, Braden didn't grow up in stability and really never got out of it, especially not at first. He was surrounded just by chaos just from day one, unpredictability and the pain that no kid should have to experience. There were years of battling, just battling for custody, battling for structure, battling to protect him from the kind of pain that leaves scars that people carry for life. I fought to be there, fought so hard, and I didn't do it for credit. I didn't do it because, I did it because I had to. Because if I didn't, who was going to show him what consistency looked like? Who was going to show him what it means to show up every day, every single day, no matter how hard, no matter how tired, no matter what kind of hell was going around us. There's just things going on the other side of the family that I wouldn't, wish upon anyone, addiction, manipulation, instability, and the worst part, he felt it. Even if I tried to shield him, he felt the abandonment, he felt the confusion. For a dad, that's so hard to deal with and try to make it my mission, even though I stumbled constantly just to make sure that he felt different when he was with me. And what if he experienced under my roof was predictable and, present. Even, if everything outside was breaking, I just decided I was never going to. You know, we didn't live in a perfect world, but I made damn sure that the world that he had with me was safe. You know, do I feel like I succeeded completely? No, but fuck. I tried to do it all when I was going through it all. And, along the way, we learned, everything together. I didn't pretend to have it all figured out, and nor do I to this day. I didn't act like I was some kind of super dad that never made mistakes. I just made a decision that I would always learn from him and with him and grow with him. He always saw that, that's our relationship, what our relationship became and, is to this day. He doesn't know the full extent of the pain I felt for, going through it all, the emotional weight I carried trying to protect him while holding myself together. The nights I barely could hold on, the, crying when he wasn't around. You know, he doesn't know the way I had to keep going and getting back up when life kept knocking me down. But I think that's the point. I didn't let him see that. I didn't want to be, that to be his burden. All I wanted him to feel was my dad's got me. And no matter what, I think he always will. We grew together, we got better together. And when he looks back on those years, that's what he'll remember. Not the pain, it's the love, the togetherness and the bond that we share because of all of that. When people ask me what I'm most proud of, the answer is so easy. It's Braden. You know, through it all, no amount of, no moment of a success, no praise I've ever received, and nothing comes close to the bond that I have with my son. Nothing compares to what he's taught me, just by existing. Braden has always been my greatest accomplishment and always will. And not because he turned out great, which he did. It's unbelievable. But because he kept me going when I should have had nothing left, when I shouldn't have been able to keep going. There are so many times in life, especially when I was young, when I wanted just to stop, when it felt like the weight was too much pain, the pain was too loud and the pressure was just too heavy. But every time I thought I couldn't do it anymore, I thought about him. And, that's it. That's all I ever needed. I couldn't quit. I didn't get to quit. And because, because that little boy didn't ask to be born into my chaos, he didn't, ask for the pain. So I had to give him something better. I had to become something better. He made me grow up fast, but not in the way that robbed me, but in the way that refined me, in the way that gave me meaning and drive and, some sort of depth, especially in like this kind of world. Braden made me a man and he never even knew he was doing it. That's, what separates me in a lot of ways from people. What separates me a lot from people are people see grind and they see consistency and they see passion and they think it's ambition. But, for me, it came from survival, from, responsibility, and from loving, somebody else and caring about that so much. He was, the reason I stayed up late, I got up early, the reason I worked harder than I should have been able to. He was the reason I never settled, because if I wasn't growing, if I wasn't leading, if I wasn't leveling up, I just wasn't doing right by him. You know, um, we didn't just have a father and son relationship, we have a life bond. We built each other, and, that's what really makes this next chapter so hard, honestly, because it feels like something we built together is shifting. And, unfortunately it is, but what I'm learning now is that the foundation that we built, that's forever. And if he can take his own, that into his own life, the discipline, the loyalty, the emotional strength, the calm in the chaos, even when it was chaos, when I know, then I know I did what I was supposed to. And that's, all I've ever wanted. There's a strange kind of beauty watching your kid become his own person. It's like watching a piece of your heart walking to the world, but, with its own rhythm. It's, its own strength and its own direction. And that's exactly where Braden is now. He graduated, he's 18, he's older than I was when I had him. And that's not lost on me. It really hits home and it feels like time went like that. I think about what I was going through at, his point in life, how confused I was, how heavy life felt, how hard I had to keep fighting just to keep my head above water. And now I'm watching him at the same age, standing strong, standing tall, and just calm and at peace. It blows me away. He's completely built different, not just because of how he was raised, but because of the decisions he's made. The person he's chosen to be. It's not because of me where he is. And I give a lot of his credit to his faith. That's something that I never pushed on him, and it wasn't something I really even emphasized growing up, but he found it. Or maybe it found him. Either way, it became his anchor. It filled in some of the gaps, especially the ones left by that feeling of abandonment, by the chaos, and by the chaos of his past. And honestly, I think God knew exactly what Braden needed, even when, I didn't. He carries himself with a peace that I didn't have at his age or ever, a clarity, just this quiet strength. And some of that comes from him. And I know a lot of it comes from his faith and his girlfriend, Claire. Claire is one of those people that, you couldn't have hoped for a better person. She's, steady, thoughtful, encouraging. They're young, but the way that she supports him, that's real, that's rare. And I see the way that he looks at her, with trust, with respect. And, that tells me he's learning to love in the ways that are healthy. And for a kid who came from such chaos, that's so powerful. He's not trying to prove anything. He's not trying to chase the wrong things. He's just living quietly, living right, steady, and, with his heart. And I get to watch it all unfold. A part of me, I was just talking about this, a part of me wants to hold on, wants to, stop time, keep him right here, you know, all the fights, all the lessons, all the tears, all the talks. It's all to get to this place, you know, to give him wings. And man, the kid can fly. So I might get emotional with this. Braden, if you ever listen to this, I hope you hear it not with just your ears, but with your heart. I just need you to know something. This is hard. I'm sorry. You saved me. You didn't ask for that. You didn't know it, but it's the truth. At the time when I could have lost myself, when life was coming at me harder than I ever imagined, you gave me the reason to fight. You made me want to become more, to get better, to show up day after day, no matter how exhausted, broken or lost I felt. You were just a baby, and still, you gave me so much purpose. And you've always been my greatest accomplishment. And not because, what you've done, but because of just who you are. The way that you carry yourself now with, faith, with peace, with discipline and love, I see it, man. I see you, and it blows me away. You didn't let the pain define you. You didn't let the chaos break you. You turned it into something good, something grounded, and something real. I'm sorry. I'm so damn proud of you, Braden. I just want you to know that and always know that. You become the kind of man that this world needs more of. Quiet strength, unshakable faith, a calm head, a loyal heart, and a fire inside that no one handed you. You lit that yourself. You're not a reflection of me. You're the reflection of everything I hoped you could be. And you took it even farther. You grew beyond my ceiling. And that's the point, isn't it? I'll always be here for you, Braden, no matter how far you go, no matter what life throws at you. I'll always be your dad, always be in your corner, and I'll always be proud to say your name. You're not just my son. You're my friend. You're my lifetime bond. And you're my legacy. I can't wait to see where you go next. And I cannot wait to see where life takes us. I love you. Whew. All right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to take a second. So, you know, all of this is hitting hard right now because that's not all that's going on. My dad listed the house in Rockford. Him selling it makes sense on paper and reality, and in the way that forces us to you know, move forward whether we're ready or not. And I never want him to feel bad for doing what he needs to do. Logistically, it's the right move. I know that. But emotionally, it stings in a way that's hard to explain. The house isn't just a house, it was my mom's heartbeat. It was the smell of the meals she made, the energy she brought into every room, the kitchen where love was the language. And even though she's gone, I think a part of me always assumed that home would always be there. A place where I could bring my family, cook in the same kitchen, and build new memories in the spaces where hers still echo. I pictured holidays, dinners, moments that would carry her legacy forward always. But all of that's shifting, and I've been going over there more lately, trying to soak it all in. And it's just wild how something can feel so familiar, but still feel like something's just missing. Maybe it's the distractions of day to day life. Maybe it's the weight of knowing change is coming. Or maybe it's just the sudden smack of realization that this is how life moves, fast and, just without warning. Because when the places that you thought would always be there start disappearing, it forces you to look harder at what you can actually shape and, you know, who you're shaping it for. And, maybe that's why I'm thinking so deeply about what comes next for my daughter and my family. Her world, what her direction is going to be, what foundation I'm going to build. The world she's growing up in is changing so fast, too fast. The systems that were supposed to guide our kids, they're outdated, stuck in a model built for a different generation, a different era, and a completely different reality. So I want to be intentional with her future. I want her to have structure and attention that actually matches the world she's going to be stepping into. Not the one that we were raised in. I want her to grow in an environment that makes sense, that supports her, you know, that isn't bound by a blueprint that should have been completely rewritten years ago. Maybe it's because of all of the loss that I felt. Maybe it's because I know how fast life can shift. Maybe it's just me being a dad. But I feel this responsibility to make sure her path is built with purpose, with clarity and protection and intention. Maybe there's a part of me that's selfishly trying to hold on to something when it comes to Braden, the Rockford house, my legacy, my purpose, you know, in a season where so much is just shifting. But maybe that's what being a parent actually is. Trying to turn all of the loss, all of the change, all of the lessons into something that strengthens the ones that come after you. So, this season has completely, for me, just been hitting different. And maybe that's the whole point of the season that I'm in. Everything's shifting, everything is changing. And, for the first time, I'm just not fighting. I'm, learning from everything. All the work I put in, I'm starting to see, I'm starting to see the outcome. Because while all this is happening with the house, with memories, with figuring out what's best for Hazley and my family, I'm also watching Braden become the man I always prayed he'd become, even when I didn't know how to pray for myself. I'm seeing him step into his own life, his own confidence, and walking his own path. It forces me to step back and look at myself not as the kid who was just trying to survive fatherhood at 17 years old, but as the man who finally gets to build something intentionally. So, for the first time, I'm not in survival mode. I'm in building mode. I'm in purpose mode. I'm in legacy mode. And that's why Life Hack hits so different now. I'm not, it's not just a business anymore. It's not just food or workouts, content or coaching. It's everything I've lived, everything I've lost, everything I've learned, and everything I'm just still fighting to build. It's the thing that carries forward the parts of me that and my family that matter the most. The consistency, the care, the intention, the growth every day, showing up every day. I want Life Hack to matter. I want Life Hack to matter to you. I want it to help people step into their next chapters the way that I'm stepping into mine. Not perfectly, not magically, but honest, deliberate, one real choice at a time. I've learned you can't skip the painful parts. You can't avoid these shifts that life just throws at you. And you can't cling to what you wish could just stay the same. You have to move with life, even when it hurts. You have to earn your truth, earn your confidence, and earn your impact through action and not just talk. And now I'm stepping forward with both eyes open, my head up, my heart finally ready, watching my son rise, build a better world for, building a better world for my daughter, and refusing to waste the life I fought this hard for. If you're listening right now, whether you're a parent, a creator, a business owner, or someone just trying to make sense of your own story, just hear me on this, okay? Just listen. You're not behind. You're not broken. And you're never too late. You're just in the middle of your chapter. And the middle is where the character is built. So keep turning the pages, because the next one, it might be the one that changes everything. It might be the one that changes everything. So I'm going to close it here. Thanks always for being with me. Thanks for believing in me. And if you haven't yet, that's cool. Stick around. So thanks everybody for watching. I always appreciate you being here. This one was so emotional for me. Thanks for listening to the real stuff. If this episode hit home for you, share it, talk about it, and keep growing with me. This is Life Hack Bite-Sized Wisdom. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.